I think that the sports are complementary to a club in terms of it will help you build community and you will reach different demographics of people, different people, but I don't think the actual two sports, if you play them, are complementary.
So Andy, the big question on the minds of tennis players that have just picked up paddle is, when do I make the switch? When do I go all in on paddle, and how long do I keep playing both sports for? Yeah,
and I think almost a follow-up, like the first question is when, and then when you decide, what do you do next, right? Yeah. And I think that's really difficult because so many people are in love with tennis. Like it's a very traditional sport. They have a mindset attached to that. And so they love tennis. And we enjoyed tennis growing up. And I think it's a great sport. And at the beginning, often people play paddle alongside their tennis, don't they? And they think, oh, is one sport going to ruin the other? Can I play both? If I want to play both, what do I need to do? And are there areas of the game that are complementary, do you think? I think volleys a little bit into, or hands around the net, I think can be useful. But is there anything else that is complementary?
I think a lot of players think there is when they start, because they see similarities in terms of it feels like a similar ball. The shots are simply, we talk about ground strokes, volleys, overheads. I think when players first come to the sport, there's a feeling that there is. And also, as a tennis player, you do pick up the sport quite quickly. So I think that there's a perception that it is. But actually, I think, and we know this as well, is that really the crossover, the more you get into paddle, the more you understand it, really, they're not really complementary of each other if you want to improve your paddle continuously over time.
I think this topic's super interesting because at the beginning, when a country starts, and let's take the UK, but it's the same everywhere, people always say, oh, the sports are so complementary in terms of like trying to encourage, this is often paddle players trying to encourage tennis clubs to build paddle. And I think that the sports are complementary to a club in terms of it will help you build community and you will reach different demographics of people, different people, but I don't think the actual two sports, if you play them, are complementary. I think people will convert from tennis to paddle. I don't think people will convert from paddle to tennis, right? Like I haven't really seen any players that are paddle players think, oh, you know what, I'm going to go and give tennis a go because it's such fun, whereas it's always the other way around. And I think that if people go in that, like clubs go in that without that understanding, then I think you would set it up in a slightly different way and hopefully educate players coming across from tennis in paddle and how to improve.
Yeah, I think about my experience of coming over from tennis to paddle is that I kind of dabbled in paddle. So I was still playing on the professional tennis circuit, and I picked up paddle. I'd come and visit you in Dubai because you were all in on paddle, and you were always telling me,
get into it now,
yeah. Go all in, get good coaching to start with.
It's good advice.
It was very good advice. At the time though, I was still dabbling. I was mainly playing tennis and playing a bit of paddle socially. For other players that are doing that, so I do resonate with a lot of players. I think, like you say, you talk about the love for tennis. I think it's quite a hard kind of love to get over. I think when you've grown up your whole life playing a sport and you've spent so many hours learning it, you've probably developed friend networks in that sport. I think it is quite hard, isn't it, to kind of go all in, and I think it's a real natural progress or process for people to just dabble in paddle for a while. But as we know, if you want to really get into paddle, start improving, competing and going down that route, then really the sooner you can go in, all in, the better.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult. We started with tennis, and at the beginning, I had the same reaction. I think to most people is you look down your nose at paddle a bit, don't you? You think it's a hobby sport. It's like tiddlywinks, but on a court. And then you get involved in it, and you start to see the tactical elements and the different style shots and the techniques required, and you think there's actually more to this game than you realise. And I was incredibly fortunate in Dubai. When I started, I was all tennis up to a point, and then literally I took this job and the next day I was all paddle. I think in the last 14 years I've played tennis twice, and so it was really like a switch overnight. And I don't think I would have chosen that if I was just a recreational playing the game, right? I still liked to play tennis, but it was my job that did that. I went from being a tennis coach in an academy to being a rackets manager of a facility that didn't have tennis. I mean, it had badminton, it had squash, and it had paddle. And so I went full into paddle. And at the time, it was probably like going into a bit of the unknown, and everyone's like, what are you doing? Like, you've left your whole tennis career behind you. But I made that switch overnight and then fully in paddle. And so I had a very different experience, I think, to most. I immediately had to learn a sport. Whereas when you dabble in it, you play. And I remember your first session, you were in Amsterdam at the time, and you had I think it was called a pizza, beers and paddle evening, where you would go and play with some mates, you'd have some pizza and beers, and you'd have a social game, and you weren't thinking, how can I improve in this sport? You were thinking, oh, it's a bit of fun. It's something to do, on a Friday evening that you can just relax a little bit. And I think that's how people start the sport. They fall in love with the social element of it. They fall in love with how easy the game is to play. And only really as you get better have you appreciated how difficult it is to learn. And as you get better, you realize there's more and more tactical elements involved. There's more and more mental side involved. And so now, when I say to you, oh, you should have gone all in earlier, you go, of course. But at the time, I'm enjoying just doing what I'm doing, keeping it as a social sport, right?
Yeah, I think it all depends on the goal of the player, doesn't it? I think there's also something to be said around you can play tennis and paddle. If you've got a tennis club that has built paddle and you enjoy playing both, that's great. I mean, you're staying active, you're playing both sports. It's good for your health. I mean, they're both good for your motor skills. I mean, paddle, obviously using walls, it's a different coordination. I think there's definitely something to say around keeping and playing both if that's your goal. I think it really depends on the goal you have. Obviously for us, we compete for our country. We're really trying to go up the levels in paddle. And so if that is your goal and you're wanting to compete hard, then I think the advice would be to go all in as soon as you can, but also get the right coaching advice. I think one of our podcast episodes we previously did was our biggest regrets, and
still haunting you.
It's an emotional roller coaster of an episode. But I remember yours was around competing, like playing more matches, and mine was around getting coaching advice, like good coaching advice earlier in my paddle journey, and not dabbling for as long as I did, even though those pizza pints and paddle evenings were good fun. So yeah, I think it very much depends on also the player's goal.
Well, I think we built our platform around that, right? Like we always say to people, if you're playing socially and you're having fun, play both sports, play tennis, play paddle. If you want to do it because you want to make friends and have fun, then absolutely, like play that. But if you are someone that is a bit competitive and you want to get better and you maybe want to enter tournaments, then you probably need to select a priority of the sports so that you aren't kind of diluting the techniques that you're learning. And then, yes, absolutely, you need advice. And those are the people that we suggest going to the platform, because the social ones, yes, absolutely have fun, but you can have fun any way you want, really. Whereas if you want to actually improve and you want to compete and you want to get better, then you need the advice, and then come to our platform, come to our roadmaps, use our drill books, use the information that we've got, but it will be down to the player to have that focus.
Yeah, and let's discuss as well then. So a player, let's imagine a player has decided, they've said, right, I'm going to go all in. I want to go all in on this sport, get competitive. We talk about the platform. That's definitely a great place to start. But what are some of the pitfalls that we see a lot of tennis players fall in? Because we also see players go all in, and then a lot of the time they just end up playing 6 times a week, playing only matches because it's super fun, and then what happens is it's this improvement plateau, right? They start improving and they think, oh, this is just going to continue, and then it will plateau off. So that's something we talk about a lot in different episodes, is this plateau. But what are some of the pitfalls and what are some of the things that players should do once they've decided they want to go all in?
Well, I think the first thing is probably stop tennis, right? Like stop playing tennis, because I know a lot of people that play both, and when you're learning paddle and learning the techniques, it can be difficult to differentiate. And then once you do, often you are playing amongst a group of other tennis players and everyone is hitting hard. They're chipping, charging, they're coming in, fast volleys, fast smashes. They're playing tennis on a paddle court essentially. And things get competitive and you want to win and you're so focused on beating your other friends who are tennis players. So I think get the advice, but also really try and implement some of these tactics that we talk about of slowing the game down, making sure your court position is good, using the lob, using the chiquita, learning the paddle shots to improve your game. Using the glass, like that was a big thing. That was one of my regrets, was not using the glass enough in the first 6 months of me learning the sport, because as a tennis player you're more confident in front, and then when you speak to people you say, well, I'm not really confident with the rebound, I don't know where it's going, and our response is always like, well, how often are you letting the ball rebound? So it's really understanding that it's a new sport. Like if you were going to go from tennis and play squash, you would treat it like a new sport, because it is a bit more different than Padel is, and so you'd learn techniques, you'd learn the tactics. So that's really what we'd recommend doing with Padel, right?
And well, you were kind of, again, you kind of had a lot of this in reverse, in the sense of you picked up Padel straight away. You went all in straight away, but then you didn't play that many matches. You actually went headfirst into training a lot. You were training every day, weren't you? And with just one other partner. So a lot of the work you were actually doing was drill based, and so the common pitfall amongst players is that they just go in and play matches, and you almost had the complete opposite, where you probably needed more matches but you went into training. But I think that also helped you learn the game quite quickly, because how hard is it, just thinking about this, if you were learning a new sport, to go straight into match play? Like how do you experiment? How do you get the feel for anything if you're always going into a competitive environment? And I mean, we joke about this, but I've started swimming as a training, and you always laugh because I was never a good swimmer when I was younger, and I think it's probably been about 25 years since. Yeah. I mean, I learned swimming and then I never swam again. I mean, even in the beach, it's like
I just picture you with armbands on. Just,
one stroke and then stand up. So I thought, okay, I want to do a bit of a low impact cardio workout. So I've started swimming, and I was actually did some swimming today, banged out some lengths, and I was just thinking, isn't it funny how if I want to learn the different strokes in swimming, I would go into a pool, get into a swimming lane, and I would practice on my own in a safe or a pretty neutral environment where I feel like, okay, I can just practice all these strokes. If I went straight into a swimming gala,
straight off the block,
straight off the bat, even if it was a fun one, it's like, I'm just going to go
talk about confidence.
Yeah, I'm going to start racing with my friends. Yeah. How on earth would I learn the techniques as well as I could? And it's exactly the same with Padel. Now, in a way, because Padel's so fun and people play matches straight away, and because they can, it's kind of masked around, but it's, we're all having fun. But if you really want to learn, you have to go in an environment where you can experiment, you can train, and that's not in a match environment. Well,
you use swimming, but it's the same in tennis, in golf, in other sports, right? Like, the thing is, in Padel, technically it's so easy to start. So people do, and people play with their friends. But really, you can't reach a decent level without doing that training and drills. And now it's quite funny, if we play, and I haven't...
Say if we swim.
If we have a race right now. No, but I was going to say, if we play a game of Padel and neither of us have played for a month, generally I will play a lot better, because I've just got such a foundation of drills and understanding of like the dynamics of the game, partly through experience, but mainly because I just spent those years like drilling the shots and working on certain patterns of play, whereas you had a more kind of match focused learning, and I think that's the difference.
And the other thing is, if we haven't played in a while, is you and I would opt to have a training session together before going and playing a match, rather than thinking, haven't played in a while, let's go straight into a match. Because we know even if we have one training session of drills, and you can check the show notes, we've actually got our drill book. This is why we created that, is for players. You don't need a coach, you can go out there and drill yourself. But we would pretty much take a few drills from that drill book, go and train, and then if we had a match later that week, we would play so much better just getting one training session in, right?
Yeah, and that would be the advice. If you were to start Padel right now, I would be like, right, let's get on the training court, let's do some drills, let's get you learning the shots, and you will reach such a higher level. I mean, look, you've been playing now for 3 years, and now you're playing for the GB team. Like, that would never have been possible without us training the shots and doing the drills.
Yeah.
Well, you see all of your counterparts that were playing tennis and now they're playing Padel, and they play okay, like they have a great eye for the ball, they're competitive, but they have nowhere near the capacity that your paddle has because they don't do those drills.
Yeah, and if we summarise this episode, Sandy, all those players listening out there that are thinking to go all in, if you want to start competing, if you want to take your level up, you do have to go all in on the sport. That's what we would recommend. And
join us on the paddle school.
Join us on the paddle school.
See you in the community.
We'll see you in there, and let's go all in together.